Hello, everybody. This is the Evolution Network Draft Outlook. I am your host, Joseph Potter, and we are coming to you live off the heels of one of the most remarkable comebacks I have ever seen in college football. And joining me today, break this situation down, is the Andrew Kermish, Chris Ransom of Draft Utopia, and TJ Trumaine Jenkins is back with us today, live from a Walmart break room. So, we've got this situation where Josh Rosen finishes 35 from 59, 491 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. But here is the deal. The first half, Rosen was 9 of 23, 114 yards, only threw it, 39% completion. It's absolutely abysmal. One of the worst performances for a first-round prospect I had heard in a long time. And then, coming in the second half, he was absolutely amazing, as he was 26 of 36, 377 yards, 72% completion percentage, and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, this was amazing for 1.5 quarters. At the same time, he made some careless throws, but the breaks went his way. I remember he underthrew that touchdown, which made it 44-30 in the fourth quarter. But it's still a touchdown, it still counts, and a huge game for Rosen and an even bigger game for UCLA. I mean, this was a big win, second biggest win comeback in college football history, with Texas A&M up 44-10. They should have no problems closing that game, yet UCLA just really showed up in the last quarter, and this game really put Rosen on the map. It put UCLA's season on the map. It saved Jim Mora's job potentially. You had people on Twitter talking about how Josh Rosen should get his hot tub back after the game, after that big of a comeback. I mean, this was a huge win for UCLA, maybe even their biggest win in school history. I won't go that far, but it's certainly up there with all of their biggest wins. And Josh Rosen really put himself back in the first-round conversation. Even though I think Lamar Jackson and Darnold are probably the two guys with Pro Bowl ceiling, there's other guys now. This game puts Rosen in the first-round discussion. I actually have him tied with Mayfield and Mason Rudolph for QB3 at the moment. So,
hold on, Chris. TJ, could you put your thumb over your microphone when you're not talking?
Sorry.
Yeah. It's hard for us to hear anything else right now except for the people in the background.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Well, like I was saying, with Josh Rosen, he had a fantastic game. He's now in the first-round discussion. The question is, who's going to look past everything he's done off the field? Because I think UCLA, after a win like this, I would not be surprised if they went on a run and got to the playoff, only to lose to Alabama in the semifinals. When you win like this, it's infectious, and it runs over from a week-to-week basis usually. Anything you'd like to add to that, Joey? Because Rosen just pulled a complete 180. I mean, this is the guy who played like Ryan Leaf in the first half and Peyton Manning in the second half. He just pulled a complete 180. There's no other way to summarize it. So, I was saying Josh Rosen pulled a complete 180. Did you want to add anything to that?
The whole thing with Rosen right now is that I'm going to run some more stats here because Rosen went and he had a remarkable second half. 26-36, 377 yards, 72% completions, 4 touchdowns. Terrible first half. 923, 114 yards, 39% passing. Now, I've got this broken down and what he did on each down. On first and second down, Rosen was 27 of 43 with 4 touchdowns. On third and fourth down, he was 8 of 16 and it was 50% on third down. He had that third, fourth down, 50%. So he did most of his damage on first and second down. He did the most damage. This is what people are going to look at. They're going to look at the first 3 quarters, and they're going to say he was horrific. They're going to look at that fourth quarter, the late third, early fourth, and through the fourth quarter, 19 of 26, 292, 4 touchdowns. That's what they're going to look at. They are clutch. And that is exactly what they're going to look at when it comes to the tape. And whether you like it or you don't like it, that's what it is. So with Rosen right now, we went and we were very close to saying, hey, he is a third-round quarterback, because quarterbacks are the top of the game when it comes to breakdowns and where you have to perform consistently. Rosen came back in a way that was just outstanding. He showed that he can play in the clutch, and that's something you normally don't get from a quarterback. So that puts him right there in first round potential and an all-time comeback for UCLA.
Yeah, this comeback puts Rosen in the first round, and I have Rosen as QB5 at the moment, but I believe he could jump Darnold because I have Darnold as QB1B. He was 1A last week, and if Darnold struggles again versus Stanford with 2 NFL corners, he'll jump from 1B to 5, and Rosen will move up to 4 if he can build on this week because, again, a win like this is huge. Huge win for UCLA, and wins like this usually cause teams to go on a run where they just win out after. You know, Joey, like wins like this usually cause a team to go on a run and win out. So
yeah, they do. And that is something that, that's leadership. And he showed great leadership in this.
Maybe this was his motivation because he wasn't voted team captain. Maybe this was his way of saying, I'm going to be the man. I'm going to show people I'm the man. So, I mean,
yeah. Because everybody says, that all the media's questioned it. I don't think, any of us have questioned. I don't know, Chris, you might have. I can't really remember. But question his love for the game, but does he really care enough, and is he really motivated enough to do the job? And that is something that we are, as of right now, saying, look, I don't question his love for the game, but his motivation for competing at the highest level has been extremely questioned. And I think that he may just been saying, all right, he may have he may have taken that as motivation and just said, hey, this is what I am. This is who I am. Guess what? I'm going, and I'm going to show you I do belong. And if he takes that all the way through the season, if that was everything came together as a wake-up call, then then I can say without a doubt he will be a top 15 to 20 pick.
Absolutely. And this is the thing. Josh Rosen was the #1 overall recruit in his position back in high school. He was graded higher than Darnold. He was graded higher than anyone in his graduation class in 2015. And this is the thing about being the top recruit in high school. Sometimes you'll get a really special player like Stafford or Andrew Luck. Other times you'll get a really terrible player that doesn't even make the final 53-man roster like Brad Kaya. Maybe Kaya was an exception, but most of the time, the best overall recruit in high school, their skills may not translate to the NFL, but Rosen was one of the guys that ended up starting right away, and there have been things with him that have been questioned. He showed he could be a special quarterback like Stafford or Luck with last night's game. Does that mean his skills going to translate? Absolutely not, but he took a huge first step to silencing some of his doubters and critics.
Absolutely. He did an amazing job. And coming in at the end in the fourth quarter, the way he did was something of it was something of brilliance. Yeah, I will say he did have a couple drops. There's, so hit those stat lines in the fourth quarter could be higher. I think he probably could have gone 21 or 22 of 26 in the fourth quarter if not for those drops. So Rosen was absolutely amazing in the final stanza, and it's amazing how if somebody gets motivated enough, how loose they can play.
Yeah, and even though UCLA has a lot of momentum right now, and I do expect them to crush their next two opponents, is it going to carry through the rest of the season? I looked up their schedule. Rosen faces at Stanford September 23rd. They get at Washington October 28th, at Utah November 3rd, and at USC on November 18th. So they get 4 road games against really tough opponents. They also get a home game against Colorado. But I think with Rosen, how many of those games can he play at a high level in? That's going to be the question, because if Rosen plays like this in one of those road contests, that could surge him into the top 5, even with his off-the-field stuff.
Yeah, and if the talent is there and the motivation is there, somebody's going to say, okay, we can mold his off the field. Yeah, it's happened before. It'll happen again. And all Rosen has to do is do the job and do it well. I mean, right now, he did it as well as any quarterback in the country, sans Baker Mayfield, who was so good they just set him down and after the first half. And so when it looks at it, you can definitely see it. But what I'm looking at here, I do want to emphasize that the competition will get stronger. Texas A&M didn't have a great defense. They had a good defense, not a great defense.
They had a few good defensive players in Dalen Mack and Armani Watts, but both of them, both of them got exposed at times, even though both had good plays in the game as well.
Yeah, and
I doubt it. I'm not sure either one goes round 1 now, because scouts will say you had a 44-10 lead and you blew it.
Yeah, and that is not even that. It's when he comes to a defense like Stanford and teams like that, he's not going to have the open opportunities. He's not going to have the clean pocket because the first half, he was getting blitzed a lot. He was getting a lot of pressure, and he was 9 of 23. Second half, the offensive line game, and they ended up the offensive line gave him a clean pocket, and he went to town and had the best second half of anybody we've seen over the last few years. So this is what I want people to remember, is that he still has a lot of work to do, but he may have just made it to where he can him going in the early first round if
my half brother
can
Ward
continue
is
this
a
game.
huge 49ers fan, and he basically said he doesn't trust many of the QBs in the draft. He feels the media is overhyping them. But if Josh Rosen can clean up his act, he is more than happy to have him on the team in San Francisco, because they have, at one point, sometimes he plays like Peyton Manning, but sometimes he's like Johnny Manziel off the field. And that's the biggest thing that detractors have said about Josh Rosen since the end of his freshman season, Joey. And I definitely see that comparison now. There were people who were saying this guy would go ahead of Goff in 2016. That's how good his freshman season was.
Yeah, but I don't see him being Johnny Manziel off the field. I don't think he's that big of a train wreck. He's going for his master's degree. Johnny Manziel, I'm not sure.
Business.
Yeah, I'm not sure how Johnny Manziel made it through college. So, I mean, it's two completely different levels. Rosen is a smart kid. May not like his attitude all the time, but he's a smart kid. Manziel has some intelligence issues and other issues that probably should be brought up elsewhere. But going back with Rosen, I love what Rosen was able to do here. I loved his second half, that the final two drives, he was amazing. So it was absolutely fun to watch, and I'm really encouraged, I guess, by what I saw out of him. And hopefully he can continue to make strides the way he did in this game, in the second half of this game, because he was absolutely phenomenal in the second half. And
Josh Rosen had a 4.3 GPA in high school. So
yeah,
and he had that really high GPA growing up.
And that brings me real quick before we move on to our season outlooks. I want to bring up a guy that I'm going to be keeping my eye on for the next couple years that I was really impressed with. A lot of length, some good strength, great first step. Defensive lineman, UCLA Bruins, number 15, Jalen Phillips. 6'5", 255, had 5 tackles, 4 of them solo, and 1.5 sacks with 2 passes deflected in this game for the UCLA Bruins. This is his first college game, and he jumped out at me as a player to watch over the next 3 years.
He is a true freshman because he played for a Redlands, East Valley, California high school, and he's considered a true freshman this year at UCLA.
That he is, and just to let you guys know, he's got 3 years in a college football weight room. This guy's going to get bigger.
Extremely impressive. He's probably going to be a top 10 pick in 2020. And with my friend updating my friend from high school who runs the high school section on Draft Utopia, in a few years, we're going to be churning out information on certain prospects. So like by the time 3, 4, 5 years from now, we're going to have information on all the top players, when they were recruited and how good were they? Did their skills translate to college? So we're going to have that at the click of a button. So it's going to be a fun few years of growth to see what happens.
Yeah, and we'll be able to cover it all right here on the Evolution Network. So, and he's going to be one of the guys that we're really going to be looking close at coming up. But now it is that time. We are getting into our season outlooks. And today we're going to start off with
the Bears.
Thank you, Chris. Just the Bears. The Chicago Bears.
You're doing it wrong, Chris. It's supposed to be the Bears.
The Bears. Yeah, it's just like, just let it go after that. But the Chicago Bears are one of those teams that you can say, well, they made stupid draft decisions, trading up for a quarterback that nobody was going to take in front of them. They didn't do much in free agency, at least nothing worth noting. They let go one of their biggest receivers. They really just broke themselves down into their base components. And then in the last preseason game, they started their rookie, Mitch Trubisky. My thoughts were, okay, Trubisky is going to get his first live look at a defense that has been playing remarkably well in that of Cleveland. Throw a pass until the second quarter. And let's face it, he didn't throw many of them. He threw like 4 passes, okay? He really didn't do much of anything in this game. So, now, Chris, I want to ask you real quick, is this an indictment on Trubisky, or is it saying, hey, the Browns have been – he threw 5 passes, sorry, not 4. Or is this a thing saying the Browns' defense has been playing extremely well, we want them to learn, we don't want them to get hurt, but we need them to get game day experience. So let's go ahead, get him the game day experience as a starter, get him calling the plays in the huddle, but let's not put him in a position where he's going to get hurt, knowing that they're going to call all these blitzes and try to really put pressure on him.
Yes, the Chicago Bears, I literally have nothing nice to say about the Chicago Bears and what they've done this offseason. I could literally do a CinemaSins compilation or a narrative of how bad the decisions they've made have been. They moved up for Mitchell Trubisky. They didn't fire John Fox. That's a sin. They didn't move up. They traded too much for Mitchell Trubisky. That's another sin. They gave Charles Leno a 4-year contract extension. That's a sin. They cut Tanner Gentry, that he didn't make the final 53-man roster after Cameron Meredith got placed on injured reserve. And you got all these guys in 1-year contracts. You've got Kevin White, who can never stay healthy. In year 3, he has to be the number 1 guy. The Bears are getting sin for that. I could go on and on like the people in the CinemaSins movies and knock the Bears for everything they've done this offseason, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to take a back seat and I'm just really disgusted by how they've operated their football team this offseason.
Yeah, they haven't really performed well as a front office, but we're not going to put the front office blunders on the players. Chris, what was your thinking on the handling of Mitchell Trubisky for the Bears in that final preseason game against the Browns?
If they know he's going to make the final roster, why are they even playing him? I mean, that's the thing. Isn't the preseason about filtering out players that aren't going to make the cut? And we're going to see that philosophy change. And we're already starting to see it change in this first year. And by the time teams get used to it, when the CBA's up, the NFL's going to say, you know what, we're going to limit the preseason to 2 games because teams are just going from 90 to 53. They're not taking this thing seriously. And you know what? Screw it. Let's only give them 2 games to figure this out and make it more challenging for them, because this is what the NFL does. They always throw curveballs to force these teams to think on their feet.
Well, Kerm, what's your opinion on the Trubisky situation and how he handled or how he was handled in that final game?
I didn't see the game, but they gave some action. They're going to get an action as a rookie. And it could be that they plan to play him sooner than they'll he should be played. So they want to go ahead and get action the regular season starts, so he's not going in as he might have been.
Yeah, I mean that's a very good point. It fits to my line of thinking about how they handled Trubisky in that situation. I think they just wanted to get him the snaps. They knew that they didn't want to get him hurt, but they wanted to get him game day experience. So that kind of fits with what I was thinking on that subject. TJ went ahead, and I think TJ had to go to work. He left, and he didn't answer I was about to ask him about the Bears, and he didn't answer anything. So I think he was probably on break, lunch. So he's gone. But moving on, I was very words. The big thing is I'm looking at their roster, who they kept, who they didn't keep, who they let go. One name I'm not seeing on here is at wide receiver is a guy that I thought would be there, and that's Gentry.
Yep, I mentioned that the Bears cut him when I went through that monologue of sinning the Bears for all the terrible moves they made this offseason. They cut him from the final roster.
Yeah, and Gentry is one of those guys who he was starting to get some he was actually starting to get a little bit of a rapport with Trubisky. Those two were starting to click a little bit. So that in itself, that's kind of puzzling. You want, half the receivers on that roster I've never heard of, but when a young receiver starts to get a strong rapport with your franchise quarterback and then you let him go, I mean, he only had 4 catches for 77 yards, but he was the main deep threat for Trubisky. So that doesn't really I don't know. It just doesn't make much sense to me. He's one of those guys that I look at and I say, man, if you pick him up, you're going to have a really good player. So that was another situation for the Bears that I just really don't understand. So, Herm, what do you think about him cutting Gentry?
I didn't see any of his play, so I can't tell you.
I mean, he was a big security blanket for Josh Allen at Wyoming.
Yeah.
Who was abysmal. And without his receivers, because you look at Josh Allen's supporting cast last year, Gentry was the main guy at receiver. Brian Hill's a third stringer on the Falcons, and the tight end Jacob Hollister made the Patriots as final 53-man roster despite going undrafted. So Wyoming's tight end made the Patriots final roster, which is big news. So Allen looked lost without his supporting cast. But getting back to Gentry, Chicago signed a lot of guys to one-year prove-it deals. They cut Victor Cruz, Cameron Meredith's on IR. So you basically say, well, Kevin White's going to be our number one guy, our number two guy is going to be Kendall Wright, and our number three guy is going to be Marcus Wheaton from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And
well, here's the thing. They also have Ruben Randall.
They don't have a number four guy. They don't have any depth if any of those three receivers get injured. And that is going to
They have Ruben Randall.
Confidence in development.
Yeah, they have their final roster with receivers. Josh Bellamy, number 15. Meredith is on injured reserve, as you said. Sweden. Ruben Randall is on injured reserve. Deontay Thompson. Okay, Kevin White, Trey McBride, and Kendall Wright. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you're looking at 6 guys, and Bellamy was he's been number 4 or 5 on receiving depth charts since he entered the league. Wheaton has been 4 or 5 on depth charts since he entered the league. Deontay Thompson, I haven't heard of since he went to Florida. I don't know where he's been hiding. Trey McBride has been a number 4 or 5 receiver. Then you have White, Wright, and as you said, unfortunately, the other only viable option is Wheaton. Why didn't they keep a guy like Gentry who could continue to grow with your franchise receiver, get some reps, and grow with him? Because he was the only guy you had at that age that could grow with Trubisky. So that's puzzling. Well, they have Kevin White's 2-year player, and White was pretty young.
Hey, Joey, do you know if they signed him to their practice squad?
I have not seen any practice squad signings. Well, the Browns signed 4 guys, but I have not seen the Bears signing for their
I know
squads.
Austin Carr was another receiver I was just as high on. I had Tanner Gentry and Austin Carr both pegged as 4th-round guys. They both went undrafted. And the Bears, they did sign Tanner Gentry to their practice squad.
They did? Okay.
That makes more sense. We're not as fortunate with Austin Carr. He picked up a deal with the Saints where I actually could see him having some success with the Saints. But let's focus on Gentry and the Bears right now.
Yeah, because that makes more sense for both the Bears and Gentry, because here's the thing. Because now he's on the practice squad. That means he's going to be getting throws from the backups, which is Johnny Manziel. Now, the downside is Tanner Gentry is now open to sign a free agent deal with any team in the NFL. So, yes, you did good by getting him in a place where he could really gain some rapport with Manziel, but you messed up by making him available to every other team in the NFL to sign.
Mansell is still
Not
out of
Manziel.
the league.
Not Manziel. Trubisky.
Yeah.
I was just reading something on Johnny Manziel.
And
No,
Yeah,
Johnny Manziel, he came up to Joey before the show and he paid him $100 bills just to mention him instead of Trubisky on the show. That was Johnny Manziel's secret plan to get attention from you.
I wish. I mean, if he had, I would have gladly taken his $100 bills, and I would have mentioned it. I would have made the entire show about him.
There's something else you have to take into account because he was probably going to be a special teams guy. He may not have been as good on special teams as they would have wanted, so they want to get him practice squad so they can make him more special teams, being a third or fourth line guy on there on the depth chart.
That's also true. Now, here the big thing I'm looking at though with the Bears, they've got a couple pass rushers. They've got a couple young defenders, which I really like. I like Adrian Amos. I liked him when he came out of Penn State. He's their starting safety. I like him. Prince Mukamara I like, but injuries kind of derailed his career. He's never been the same. He's 7 years, coming into his 7th year, so I like that. A Deion Bush fan. I like Deion Bush, strong safety coming out. I think we both like Kadeem Carey, but he's on injured reserve. I mean, at running back, so they got some good talent. Eddie Goldman is a guy out of Florida State. I was real high on. I know, Chris, you weren't so high on him, but I was. And he's a 3-year veteran now. And I like Eddie Jackson out of – I know, Kerm, you were high on Eddie Jackson. So they've got some defensive talent. I mean, offensively, however, the defensive talent's just going to have to get up to speed to the NFL game. The offensive talent their moves there are puzzling. I really don't get it. I really don't. But I think they have some guys defensively that can make a little bit of noise. And the one I'm really looking forward to seeing, and I want your guys' take on this, is Eddie Jackson. Chris, I know you have followed the camps pretty closely out there. And what have you heard about how Jackson has played?
Well, one of the things I've heard is that he may get a starting spot at some point later in the season. So it'll be interesting to see if Chicago ends up going with that direction because they have Adrian Amos. I think they brought in Quentin Demps from the Texans, I believe it was. And, yeah, they've got another safety out of Miami who's just terrible. And Eddie Jackson's an upgrade over that safety.
Yeah, and Eddie Jackson could play either safety or corner. Kerm, do you think that Eddie Jackson will be able to snatch a starting spot in Chicago?
Ooh, that is. He possibly could and he'll probably become a. They're also punt return man. He'll probably start out as positional and remain a punt returner because he returned punts at Alabama, and he very well could. I think personally I would want to wait a year, but if he shows he could do it, yeah, I can see it happening.
Yeah,
depending on how far down they go.
Yeah, that's true, but he is one of those guys that will come in here and really get really make a difference. Really make a difference. Sorry, I'm trying to grab something real quick here. And Chris is dutting everywhere.
No, I'm just checking. I was just checking. One of my writers was sending me some of the week 1 picks. Jesse Lucas, who we used to have on our podcast, he thinks the Bears could actually beat Atlanta if they start Trubisky.
That is, I'm not gonna.
But I told him they're starting Glennon, so he went with Atlanta. But
Yeah, and so we're gonna. On that note, I think we spent a lot of time talking about.
the Bears. Did I perfect
Yes.
local tonality there, Kurt? Right. Let's move on to San Francisco.
Yeah, please. Because here's the thing, I just invited Ryan, so we're gonna see what happens here. Now, the San Francisco 49ers are a team that, if I look at them from the outside in, you could definitely say they're dysfunctional. You can definitely say a lot of things about them. But the thing is, when you look down deeper, you got a starting quarterback that is very solid. It's not spectacular. You have a young defensive nucleus with Akila Witherspoon at cornerback, Reuben Foster at linebacker, Solomon Thomas at defensive end. You got a quarterback in C.J. Beathard, who surprisingly enough looked pretty good in the limited action I've seen him in. I know it's against third stringers, but he's looked pretty good. So from looking in, those are just their top 4 draft picks. So then when you come in here and look at, they do need a lot of help on the offensive line. I don't think anybody's going to question that. But they cut Matt Barkley, which means Beathard did make a good impression, as I feel he made a good impression. So offensively, they're young. They need a lot of improvement. But offensively, they may have a few pieces there. And defensively, with Eric Armstead at left defensive end, DeForest Buckner at defensive tackle, Tank Carradine and Solomon Thomas at right defensive end. You have a strong young linebacking core that is Reuben Foster, Eli Harold, with veteran Navarro Bowman in the middle. And then at strong safety you have Eric Reed. So defensively, San Francisco may not be as bad as a lot of, if you really get down to it, as a lot of people are thinking they might be. And Kerm, what do you think about that assessment?
I'm not sure. What I only heard part of what you said. It was a breaking up on my end.
Well,
So I didn't hear it all.
All I heard was a bunch of clicking from Chris. But yeah, it's the gist of it was be not be nearly as bad as we think they they'll be from the outside looking in, because if you look at their defense, they got a lot of young talent. I mean, they got Armstead, Buckner, Tank Carradine, and Solomon Thomas, linebackers Eli Harold and Reuben Foster, and they did sign K'Wan Williams, who is a devastating nickel corner. He plays good man, and he will lay a hit on you. Unfortunately, it comes with injuries, but he'll lay a hit on you. So, what do you think about the 49ers?
They definitely won't be as bad as they was last year, but they still got a lot of room to grow.
Yeah, oh, definitely. They do have a lot of room to grow. Um, right now, their leader, their most experienced defender, is 29-year-old Navarro Bowman. Their leader on offense is career journeyman and backup Brian Hoyer. Chris, do you think at any point in time this year, CJ Beathard ends up as the starting quarterback?
I hope not. For the sake of the 49ers, I just hope not.
I mean, he didn't look as bad as everybody seemed to think he was going to look. I mean, let's face it, we didn't think he was going to look like much of anything. We actually thought he was going to fall on his face. But he was 58% passing, 53% passing, 55% passing. We were all thinking he would be like 40 to 50% passing. So, I mean, and he showed good arm strength. He's not nearly ready, but I mean, he didn't look as bad as we thought he was going to. What do you think about? I think we know this offense is young. George Kittle may be the star of the offense at tight end to just give you a little indication. But Chris, what do you think of the defense? Because this is where I really like what they're doing.
Yeah, with the 49ers, their front seven is absolutely stacked, and they are rebuilding, but at the same time, they have a lot of pieces on defense. They're starting George Kittle at tight end. The fact that they traded Vance McDonald is a vote of confidence for Mr. George Kittle. So, yeah, that's going to be working for them. Hoyer's going to be their quarterback. Their running back situation is a little bit intriguing. Carlos Hyde may not start, and his carries are expected to be limited this year. So I'm curious to see how this is going to play out.
Yeah, because I heard that they cut both Joe Williams and Tim Hightower. So, correct, Chris?
Yes.
So, and Raheem Mostert was, by all accounts, the best running back they had in camp and during the preseason. So that means he will be the immediate backup. So, and it also means that they keep Capri Bibbs as their third string running back. So, yeah, you're right. That is going to be an interesting situation. And what do you think about when it comes to their defensive nucleus? I'm going to run off a few names here. And I want you to give me your thoughts on this nucleus. Defensive tackle DeForest Buckner. Defensive end, Eric Armstead. Defensive end, Tank Carradine. Defensive end, Solomon Thomas. Linebacker, Eli Harold. Weak side linebacker, Reuben Foster. And strong safety, Eric Reed. What do you think of that nucleus? Would you go over or under on that, and why?
49ers at 3-13. I just feel like they're not there yet offensively, but the defense is going to be a lot more competitive. I have them splitting with the Rams and the Cardinals, and I have them forcing Seattle to overtime at home, but losing. So I think they'll be a lot more competitive defensively, but they're still a huge work in progress offensively.
So is that an over or an under defensively for them?
Under 5 wins for the 49ers.
Under 5 wins, that's not a big vote of confidence for their defense, but because I actually give their defense a little more credit than you do, Chris. Well, if I would ask over under on offense, I would go under, way under offensively. But defensively, I would go over on their defense simply because they've got too darn much talent defensively to not really take over, because I think they'll make a lot of plays this year. But Kerm, when does Solomon Thomas start?
Let me look up some stuff real quickly.
It's like, because Tank Carradine was any statistics for Thomas during the preseason, but Tank Carradine's 28 years old, and he had 0 sacks, 0 forced fumbles, and 18 tackles last year. A good player, a solid player, but solid versus all-world rookie.
Probably he'll start giving it 49ers. I say week 9.
Week 9. Wow. Kerm taking the extremely patient approach here with Solomon Thomas. Chris, what do you think about that?
What?
Kerm just said, knowing the 49ers, Solomon Thomas will probably start for the 49ers in week 9.
I don't believe that's the case. I think he will start by week 3 because he's too talented not to if he's not currently starting now. And Thursday night game against the Rams have a huge weakness at right tackle. Thomas is a 43 left end, so that's the perfect team to put him in against to build his confidence, to jumpstart his confidence.
Yeah, and we are going to come back to the 49ers because I would love to break down this defense, and I know we're going to come back to them again as the season goes on, because this defense it looks like one of these things that it's going to be fun to talk about throughout the season. So I know we'll be back here at some point with that. Now we have one more destination on our season preview track, and that destination is Cleveland. The Browns.
Yeah, the only
factory of sadness, what do they call it on the Herd? They had the dumpster fire of quarterback songs. You can look that up on YouTube. Check it out, the Herd. Quarterback dumpster fire. Very good listen. And that's coming from a Browns fan. You can't poke fun of yourself. You can't poke fun of anybody.
Yep.
But the Browns...
I'm thinking about playing the Come On Down to Cleveland Town video. I won't because it's your channel, but That's what you think of when you think of the Browns.
Yeah, and here's something that the Browns made a lot of cuts. Yesterday, they cut 4 more, picked up 4 guys. They cut Hollywood Higgins. They cut a lot of veterans. But look at who they kept. They kept Zane Gonzalez, the kicker, 7th-round pick. They kept Matt Days, running back, 7th-round pick. They kept all their rookies except for, I believe, well, they didn't cut Howard Wilson, but they put him on the IR or injury designation or something like that to free up the roster spot. They kept all their rookies this year and cut 2 of the wide receivers they drafted last year in Hollywood Higgins and Peyton. Not only that, not only did they release Brock Osweiler because his salary is now guaranteed, so they didn't need him. They didn't need him to get to the salary floor anymore.
Yeah. Well, from what I read, they was always planning to not keep Osweiler. They was just wanting the pick more than the player.
Yeah, they wanted the pick, but the player was an added bonus because the Browns were in trouble of not reaching the salary cap floor. So Osweiler's deal, along with that of John Greco, who was released in the final cuts, put them over the floor. And then they released them. Now they had to pay that salary, and they'll have to pay enough of it to keep them from going too low and getting a huge fine. Well, maybe not huge by NFL standards, but huge fine for any of us listening.
Because really it'll just be a case of if Team Broncos have already re-signed Osweiler from reports, and
Yes.
they signed him for the league a minimum for how much experience he has. So the Browns.
That means the Browns are on the hook for the rest of that salary this year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he will. So he continues to help the Browns simply because he keeps them off the salary floor. So thank you, Brock Osweiler. The Browns don't need any fines. But here's the thing. The one thing that stands out to me right now on the Browns, tight end David Njoku.
Okay.
We knew he was going to drop passes. We knew it was going to happen. It was one of those things that were going to come up, and he was definitely dropping passes this season. This preseason when he did play, he got a couple big catches, but he also dropped some passes. The starting tight end right now, as we speak, is tight end Seth DeValve. People are like, who? Is that white guy that took the knee with all the black players, in the pregame, in week 3? It's like, yeah, 6'3", 245 pound, 24-year-old white guy from Princeton took a knee with his black teammates. But that's what he's known for now. But what he will be known for is that he is very good at finding seams in the defense. A very good pass catcher, very athletic. He caught 4 passes against Tampa Bay, 57 yards. He caught 2 against the Giants, but he was only there for 2 yards. He caught 1 against Chicago, went for 35 yards. Okay? He played in 12 games as a rookie for the Browns. Didn't suit up the first 4 games. Started 2 of them. Caught 10 passes, 127 yards, 2 touchdowns. So he had 2 25-yard catches. Seth DeValve, guys, he's going to be a guy you're not going to see coming. And he's going to be a guy who, if you don't have him in fantasy leagues, Look him up now because he'll find holes in the seam. He's very athletic, and he'll beat you deep. He's deceptively athletic. And he may end up being as much as Deshaun Kaiser is going to get all this attention. Let's face it, his main target, he's probably going to have two main targets. Corey Coleman, and then look at this tight end. Because Seth DeValve, I'm telling you now, may be a difference maker here. Will they line up Njoku and get Njoku's hands where they need to be? Look at DeValve. Chris, what do you think about DeValve and this? What type of difference maker he could be on offense?
Well, I remember when scouting Njoku, one of the things that bothered me with his tape is he'd always drop passes. And it looked like he corrected that at his pro day, and it really looked like the Browns may have had a blue-chip tight end on their hands. They still may have that in Njoku, but they're going to need to develop him. DeValve, on the other hand, he was a receiver at Princeton. He has the size of a tight end, so the Browns are trying him at tight end. And this is a sort of an insurance policy for them while Njoku develops, because you're seeing the Giants use Rhett Ellison while Ingram develops his blocking. You're seeing the Buccaneers use Bray as they develop Howard. So you're seeing all the teams use their rookies as number 2 tight ends so they can develop them some more so they can reach that ceiling. So I'm really curious to see what's going to happen here with the Browns. And Kenny Britt has a clause in his contract, and this is what I mean. There is no dead cap penalty if the Cleveland Browns release Kenny Britt in 2018 or 2019. And that is a huge bonus for the Browns, because that means if Britt underperforms at any point within the next 4 years, he's gone.
Yeah, and that is a great point, Chris, because now here's the thing. I'm bringing this up because it's something that was discussed right after he was drafted, but we haven't really gotten into it much. I don't think anybody else really has either. You bring that up, and it just brought it back to mind. David Njoku. They said, we're going to use him all over the field. Now, that's one. Njoku has the body. He's chiseled. But he's new to football, relatively new. Okay, so he is a highly athletic, highly talented project, ready to be molded. Duke Johnson, there's a lot of talk that he may move to receiver, simply because he plays so many positions. He plays behind the quarterback, he plays the slot, he's stuck out wide sometimes. So there's that. Then you have of course, Matt Days, 7th-round rookie. He's been impressive, especially catching out of the backfield. He's able to make a lot of guys miss. He's still developing. Now,
Matt Days was an exceptional blocker, though, at North Carolina State. And I remember watching his tape right before the Senior Bowl and saying, wow, this guy's a really good blocker. This guy's going to be a steal for someone. And the Browns may have just found that with Days.
Yeah, and here is the linchpin. What you have at quarterback, the youngest quarterback in the NFL, is going to be your starter, Deshaun Kaiser. You've got a bunch of young guys around him. Then you got Kenny Britt. What does this mean? This means Njoku could potentially move to receiver if DeValve works extremely well at tight end. This means that you have Duke Johnson, who could potentially move to receiver. It was something that was talked about in the preseason, early on in the preseason. Then you have Days, who's coming up as a third down back who looked like he and Kaiser hit it off extremely well. You have Crowell, who I think that if he continues to run hard behind this offensive line, could be extremely good. Now, all of a sudden, you put that with Corey Coleman, who looked like by the third preseason game, he and Kaiser were starting to really get used to each other. They were making some big plays. I mean, Kaiser was throwing some bullets in between the starting corners for the Buccaneers and the safeties. He was hitting them in places he shouldn't have been able to hit them. Only the best quarterbacks can do that. And quarterbacks with very good feel for their receivers. A lot of trust in their receivers. But you can see him starting to form these relationships with these players. So, do I expect miracles from them this year? No. There's going to be a lot of growing pains. Joe Hughes probably going to drop a lot of passes. Kaiser's probably going to throw quite a few interceptions. I don't expect miracles out of the offense. But, Chris, how do you think this all develops, looking at it from a wide scope?
It's interesting. I know this guy on YouTube did like a 4-year Madden simulation of how Kaiser and Mahomes would develop over the span. Mahomes ended up beating the Patriots in the playoffs and getting his rating up to 90, but never winning a Super Bowl. The Browns' development was a little bit different. Year 1, they went 8-8, missed the playoffs. Year 2, they went 10-6, won the division, lost the wild card game. Year 3, they won the division again. They lost they lost to Jacksonville, who was coming off an AFC title. And yeah, that's a little bit surprising, but that's how it happened. In year 4, Jacksonville Cleveland beat the Atlanta Falcons, and Kaiser won Super Bowl 55 in Los Angeles in the new Rams Stadium. I know you'd love to see that, and don't worry, the Falcons didn't come away empty-handed. They beat the Patriots in a Super Bowl 52 rematch. So Matt Ryan did not come away empty-handed. He did not lose Super Bowls 51 and 55 and get nothing. That's not what happened in the simulation. But yeah. And Kaiser's rating in Madden went up to 89 after that. But they had a really good defense, and like 10 of the starters had a rating of 90 or higher on that Browns defense.
Well, yeah, it's like you say, yeah, it's funny because the
Garrett had 19 sacks his first season, 26 his second season.
Yeah, I think I saw that, what you're talking about, that build. I didn't find much of I didn't think much of it. It just wasn't good.
I don't think those real benchmarks are realistic, but if they do, Myles Garrett's going to be another Reggie White if he has numbers like that in his first 2 seasons.
Yeah, and but how do you believe, not a man simulation, but looking at the whole that I just broke down for you? And
I believe this
is
anywhere between 7 and 9 games. I really believe that. They have a very easy schedule outside of Pittsburgh, and they do get some tough games, but at the same time, I think this is a manageable schedule.
Yeah,
and as soon as we get done with our outlooks, I do have some news. I also got word from Ryan that he will not be able to make it today because his only off days are Sundays and Wednesdays with with his work schedule. So, but I got news involving Andrew Luck and news involving Lane Taylor. So I'll get to that in a second once we complete our outlooks.
Sounds good. And what do you think of this defense? Because Jabril Peppers and this is for Kerm, because I know Kerm loves to talk about big sweaty men. And what about not only Peppers, but what about Myles Garrett? Kerm, what do you think the impact is going to be of Myles Garrett when it comes to his immediate impact on the team? And the same with Peppers. What's his immediate impact going to be?
They're going to both have huge impacts. I think Garrett will be one of the better ones. Probably going to be just as good as he'll be just as good as what was predicted coming out of the draft with him. I don't think you can go wrong with Garrett at the moment. I would say he might even be he'll be in the running for Defensive Rookie of the Year, but he will not get it.
Oh, that's interesting. Who do you think gets the Defensive Rookie of the Year then, Colonel?
I'm not sure. I have to look at what all the rookies there are on the Defensive Rookie of the Year side. So I couldn't say yet who's going to get it, but I don't think Garrett. I think Garrett will come up short. He'll finish at the top, but he won't get it.
How ironic would it be for everybody who said?
I'll give a bold name. I'm going to give a bold. If it's going to be one or two edge players, or maybe three. I think it's going to be an edge player who wins Defensive Rookie of the Year. The three guys I'm looking at are Myles Garrett of Cleveland, T.J. Watt of Pittsburgh, because T.J. Watt is starting over James Harrison, and Takaris McKinley. He's going to play 43 right end next to Vic Beasley, according to Scott Karazik, who used to be on the Walter Football Forums with us back in the day, now writes for Falcons Wired. So he gave me a big pep talk after I posted my Falcons preview because there was a lot of information he didn't like, and that's good because that helps me learn the team better. And, yeah, Takaris McKinley, Watt, and Myles Garrett. Those are the three candidates I'm looking at as Defensive Rookie of the Year. And I can totally see McKinley coming in there with Beasley leading the NFL in sacks. I could see McKinley coming in there and just having a big year because people focus more on Beasley. They'll dismiss what McKinley can do, and that'll be a huge mistake on their part. So I could see any of those three guys winning it.
Well, he hasn't given me a pep talk, so I'm ahead of you in that situation. So as far as the Falcons go, I am your superior. My thing for Rookie of the Year is a little bit interesting because this is something I'm going to say is going to be both ironic and, in a way, painful to say it. I would not be surprised if Jabril Peppers is in the running for the Rookie of the Year, which will give those people who said Jabril Peppers is a top 5 prospect.
I remember Ken LeBlanc of Scouting College Football said Myles Garrett and Jabril Peppers were the number 1 and number 2 players in the entire draft.
Yeah, and that's going to give them credit when I was saying he was a fringe first-round pick to a early second-round pick. And from what I've listened to in the preseason, from what I've watched in the preseason, Peppers is one of those guys. He's not quite there yet, but within the first couple weeks, he could really come on. And the thing that really struck me hardest with him was that he didn't get that interception because of any of his outstanding athletic ability. He has not done anything that, other than special teams, that makes you say, wow. Except because what he's done mostly is just, he hasn't roamed. He's followed the scheme. He did, when he made that interception, was he just did what the scheme told him. He just went back and they were playing it over. So the linebacker came over, the receiver was open, there was an overthrow. Peppers was there because he was in position. Now, if you have a player that believes in the system so completely that he will sacrifice his own athletic ability to learn the system and be in position every time, now you have a player that's dangerous because when he is sure, hey, I can get to my athleticism, now he's not only in position to make plays, but he knows he can make them athletically as well. That makes her a very dangerous player. And as much as it pains me to say he could be in the running for Defensive Player of the Year, he could very well be in the running for Defensive Player of the Year. What do you think about that, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a player that could be in the running for Defensive Player of the Year. If he makes some big interceptions, he could be a guy who just comes up out of nowhere like Tashawn Gibson did for the Browns a few years ago. So I wouldn't rule that possibility out as well.
Yeah, and Kerm,
I've even got some news on Cameron Sutton as well. So I've got 3 players to report news on after we get done with these outlooks.
Good. I like Sutton. But Kerm, what do you think about Jabril Peppers and the possibility of him potentially being in the Rookie of the Year running?
That's interesting.
It is. Okay, so with that out of the way, we have our final outlooks of the year. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start off with Andrew Kermish. Kerm, what is your season outlook for the Chicago Bears?
Like I said, on Chris's podcast earlier, I got them finishing 4th in the division.
Yep. I have them 4th in the division as well. I have them at 2-14, picking 2nd in the draft behind the New York Jets.
I actually had them 4th in the division, but I'm going to go a step further. I'm going to say with the moves they've made this offseason, with some of the players they've cut, I'm going to go ahead and say they pick 1st overall.
And you know what? If they do pick 1st overall, there's going to be a huge – it's going to be like Tennessee all over again. I mean, we're going to see a bunch of teams trying to trade up for number 1, especially in the quarterback class.
Because they've already got Trubisky. So with that quarterback class, it's like if the Bears get number 1, it's a shopping spree.
Yep, because they extended Charles Leno. They unless they wanted to take Arden Key at number 1, and I'm sure that's the rumor we'll probably hear, because I don't think they're going to take a receiver at 1, especially Kirk after he had 60 yards versus UCLA. Their 2 pass rushers, Lamar Houston and Pernell McPhee, if they cut both of them, who are starting over Leonard Floyd, if they cut both of them, they save $15 million against the cap. Probably should have brought that up when we were talking about the Bears, but if they cut both of those pass rushers, they could save $15 million. They can make Leonard Floyd the starter, and then they could draft Arden Key out of LSU to pair with Leonard Floyd, and then you have 2 guys off the edge who can make life a little bit easier for this offense. So I think there's going to be rumors that they go Arden Key, but if they get the number 1 pick, they'll ultimately trade it. And I think the team they'll trade it to is Buffalo, because Buffalo would move up just to screw the Jets out of a quarterback.
I would say they get 3 wins.
But if the Bears get the number 1 pick like Joey is suggesting, I think the Buffalo Bills will move up to number 1 for a quarterback, and then the Jets will end up picking it 2.
And that being said, guys, Chris, we're going to start with you this time. What is your outlook for the San Francisco 49ers?
I mentioned it. I tipped it a little bit earlier, and I'm going 3-13, last in the division. But if they pull the upset on Carolina this Sunday, they have a chance to start the year 2-1, and that's huge because week 1 they get the Panthers. Then in week 2 they have a road opponent, and then week 3 they get the Rams at home. So that is huge for them. I doubt they would beat Seattle in Seattle. So, but they could be 2-1 heading into October if they can take care of the Panthers on Sunday. Because I have them beating the Rams at home on Thursday Night Football. So if they can upset the Panthers this week and then beat the Rams on Thursday Night Football, you're looking at a team that has a chance to be 2-1 heading into October. I think that would be the peak of their season, but it's possible.
Yeah, and Herm, I got to ask, what is your season outlook for the San Francisco 49ers?
I'm going to go again with Chris finishing last in the division.
Yeah,
it's going to be another long year for them.
Yeah, I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to say I'm going to be a little more optimistic than you guys. I want to say the 49ers win 4 games, and I think they do it off the back of their defense. This defense, the offense, as critical as I've been in the offense, I love what they're doing with this defense. Absolutely love what they're doing with the defense. So, I mean, let's call it spade a spade. I'm going to give them 4 wins off the back of the defense, and I'm going to say they finish top 14 in defense. Top 14 in defense, but the bottom 3 in offense.
Yeah, I can see that. I was also thinking giving them 4 wins, but that's.
I'm going to say
if they do get the 4, that will be on strictly defense.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I have the 49ers projected to finish 14th in sacks, 21st in points allowed, 26th in total yards allowed, 12th in run defense, and 31st in pass defense. Any thoughts on that?
I think you're a little bit hard on with pass defense because I think their pass rush is going to make it a lot easier on those corners. And with Reed, I am a big fan of Reed. So at safety. So, I mean, I think you're a little harsh on the defensive backfield, but other than that, I could see something going. I could see something similar to that. And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, Kerm, we're going to start with you. What is your season outlook for the Cleveland Browns?
You're gonna hate this, Joey, but have them again sucking up the entire league.
But how bad?
But I will say
sucking
this:
up?
3 wins tops.
I think they can win 5 games with that defense, realistically, which is where Tony has them. But I got the Browns going 7-9, finishing 2nd in the AFC North behind Steelers, who I have running away with that division. But I have the Browns at 7-9. And the scary thing is, before they made all these cuts, I had the Browns going 9-7 at one point, with the loss to the Chicago Bears on Christmas Eve and Mitchell Trubisky being the one thing that killed their playoff chances.
Well,
so, I don't have
my outlook.
And I'll go even further. I'll leak my week 1 prediction for Browns Steelers. I have Pittsburgh winning that game 31-17, but I have Kaiser going 20 for 29, 271 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And that's a huge win. If the Browns are able to get 17 points on the Steelers defense and Kaiser avoids turnovers, that is a huge win for their confidence moving forward, even if they lose that game.
Well, here's the thing for me. My outlook is that literally they win the games that a team's supposed to win. I have them starting 0-2, losing to both Baltimore and Pittsburgh, running off the next 5 out of 6 games, beating Indianapolis, beating Cincinnati, beating the Jets, beating Houston, losing to Tennessee, and beating Minnesota. So they'd start 5-3. We've seen that before. They fell off a cliff, and they didn't win another game the entire season. After that, you had the bye. What comes after the bye? I have them losing to Detroit.
Heartache.
I have them losing to Detroit, being 5-4, beating Jacksonville and Cleveland, or beating Jacksonville and Cincinnati, and then beating Chicago in Week 16. So they end up finishing 8-8. They beat who they're supposed to beat and lose to who they're supposed to lose to. There is no questions there. They finally got to the point to where they can beat teams that are not as talented as they are. That's it. As you said, Chris, it's a rather easy schedule. And that's what you go with. The big question mark, they could finish 7-9 easily with the Indianapolis game. The Indianapolis game I'm torn on, they could start out 0-3.
All right. So I've got 3 breaking news headlines in the NFL and 2 for college football. And we'll start with the NFL because that's the more interesting headline. The Indianapolis Colts are not going to start Andrew Luck in Week 1. In fact, from what I'm hearing, the Week 1 starter is looking like it's going to be Jacoby Brissett. Now, you're probably asking yourself, how the hell the Colts get Jacoby Brissett? Well, the Colts traded Philip Dorsett to the Patriots in a one-on-one trade for Jacoby Brissett.
Chris, what ESPN was reporting and what I saw, Scott told us it's going to be start a week 1.
Well, the reports I got were a little bit different, but if the Colts start Scott Tolzien, they're going to turn to Brissett at some point until Luck comes back because I just don't trust Scott Tolzien. Him and Stephen Morris were both brutally bad in the preseason.
Well, here's the thing. I think what we get from it is which one starts. Andrew Luck is not starting.
Yeah.
And the question remains, how long will he be out? That is because we just did our Cleveland Browns preview. I said the Browns very well could lose to the Colts. That was assuming that they had Andrew Luck. If they don't have Andrew Luck, I don't see the Browns losing to the Colts. So the question is, how long will Andrew Luck be sidelined?
And the Colts are also not going to have Vonta Davis in Week 1. His injury is expected to be longer than Andrew Luck's injury, too. So that the Colts' best offensive and defensive players are both going to be out in Week 1.
Yeah, so that is a huge, huge loss. And if Luck is out more than 2 weeks, it could just derail the entire season.
All right, the news involving the Packers and the Steelers before I get to college. The Packers have agreed to a 3-year extension with starting left guard Lane Taylor, who we bashed. And I think the reason for this is a weak guard draft. And the Packers know that they don't really have very much better options on the table at this point. So it's like, you know what, let's just pay the man his money and hope it works out because that's what happened with Bakhtiari. They finally paid him. It worked out. So we'll see what happens. But the Packers have extended Lane Taylor to a 3-year extension, so they're probably not going to be drafting a guard early this year, even though I feel like that's a position they could upgrade. They've extended their guard. Any thoughts on that before I get to the Steelers news?
Well, for the Packers to extend a mediocre guard, that really is a condemnation more on the draft class coming up than it is a congratulations, you have done us a great service.
I mean, there's Quentin Nelson out of Notre Dame is the only blue chip guard, and then the only other good starters after that are Wyatt Teller out of Virginia Tech and Will Hernandez out of UTEP. They're both third-round prospects, so the rest of the draft is just mediocre guards. So the Packers pretty much know they're not going to get one of those three guards, so they're just going to extend Lane Taylor.
Yeah, and what's the other piece of news you got?
Involving the Steelers, they are going to put J.J. Wilcox from the Dallas Cowboys on the bench as a depth player. Tampa Bay traded a seventh round pick and Wilcox to the Steelers in exchange for a sixth round pick, in a pretty horrible trade for Tampa. They did this one day after getting T.J. Ward, so unless Justin Evans is ready to start right away, I don't see why Tampa Bay made this trade. But the bigger news involves Cameron Sutton out of Tennessee. He has re-injured his hip and has been placed on IR. A Steelers fan believes he will be ready by mid-season, week 8, but again, he re-aggravated the same hip that he injured at Tennessee last year. In the past few years. So he's re-injured that hip. He's on IR. He might be out for the year. He might be out until week 8. But that's still a huge loss for the Steelers now, because now they sort of have a gaping hole at nickel corner. Because he was expected to start at nickel. He was making a lot of progress, had a really impressive preseason, and they were going to name him the starting nickel corner. But now he's out until week 8 at the least. He might even be out for the entire year.
Yeah, and that is a huge blow because I've been extremely high on Sutton for a couple years. TJ, you here?
Yeah, I'm here, man.
Yeah.
I have some college here to get to as well before we sign off, because some quarterbacks, two quarterbacks suffered season-ending injuries. They're both the top two quarterbacks in Charlie Campbell's 2019 mock draft. Jacob Eason out of Georgia. Can I speak?
Man. She's so disrespectful.
Chill.
Brittany, you know Brittany, right?
Yeah.
TJ, please mute the talking. Somebody.
All right, hold on.
What was that, Chris?
Yes, I was going to say that as far as college football news goes, the top two quarterbacks in Charlie Campbell's first 2019 mock draft are both officially out for the season. For starters, Jacob Eason and DeAndre Francois are both ruled out for the season. On Saturday, I got a report that Jacob Eason, after his knee injury, he tore his ACL, MCL, and PCL. He is expected to be out for the year. He did not return. There were some people on Twitter saying he would return. He never did. And I believe that report is true. So Jacob Eason is out for the year. And last night it was reported that DeAndre Francois, the quarterback ranked behind Eason in 2019, is also out for the year. And Shea Patterson, the number 3 QB in that class, suffered a season-ending injury last year as a freshman. So all of the top 3 quarterbacks in the 2019 draft are guys with durability concerns. So the moral of the story here is, if you need a quarterback, you better pull the damn trigger this year.
I wouldn't say that Francois has durability concerns. He just got landed on wrong day when Hillman tackled him.
Maybe, but teams are going to worry if these guys get injured again next year. That's my point.
Because I saw that play live, and you could tell he hurt his leg as soon as the play was over. You could tell that it was something that it looked bad.
Yeah, but teams are going to look at how these guys recover from injuries after this year if they don't take a quarterback. And that's bad news for the Bears, because if Trubisky struggles, they're probably going to take one of these injury-prone QBs and set themselves back even further. Any thoughts on these injuries, Joey?
Well, I don't really have much to him now. That's 2 years down the line, 2020.
You're 2019 guys, but yeah.
Yeah, they blew out their knees like that. Unless they're seniors, I don't think that they're going to come out in 2019.
I think Darnold should go back now because it's like he'll be the #1 guy if he waits and goes back to school, gets his degree, because the other guys are all having to face durability questions. And I feel like there's a lot of QBs that actually have a chance to jump him. So Darnold actually benefits more if he goes back after this season.
Yeah, so at this point, you know, with Darnold, I would probably go back if I was him. But, you know, as far as the other guys, it's as far as the other guys go, we can't really say for certain that they would or would not have come out. This just basically guarantees that they will they will stay, and which could potentially, you know, strengthen that 2020 class.
Yeah, they might stay, and I think the best class is probably going to be the 2021 class. And I know that sounds a lot early, but a lot of the quarterbacks currently in high school football really look really good, the guys in their senior years. But they have to win starting jobs in college. Their skills have to translate from high school to college. We can't just label any of these guys future first-round picks, because if they don't start right away, there's going to be a learning curve. So I'm not going to jump that far ahead into the future. So
yeah, and that's all there is to it, really, is that, you know, it just sets them back a year, but it'd be wonderful to see what it would be like this year, and we won't get to see that. But yeah, because I just looked at my phone and I just got
the Jordan Herbert out of Oregon, he's a true sophomore, started last year as a freshman. So he's the only sophomore, healthy, true sophomore.
Yeah, and I just got the alert that you did about Andrew Luck on my NFL draft app. So they're a little behind the 8 ball here on updating my news and notes, because I get all that stuff.
Well, I saw it on Facebook
instantly.
on NFL.com. I saw an ad for it or an article for it.
Yeah, it's like they've got that article up before they get the breaking news alerts up. You know, their tech department's a little bit lacking today.
It's like my tech department at Draft Utopia, and that's not a good thing.
Oh,
you're
your
a
tech department
company, okay? NFL, you're $1 million company. I'm just some
you're
guy that writes code in my apartment. You're $1 million company.
You're a slacker. But yeah, this has been a really nice episode. I wish we could have got TJ's opinion on a couple things, but his people decided that they didn't like him today, obviously. But overall, all I got to say is this has been a really nice broadcast. So everyone out there listening, everyone now, everyone in the future, like and share this broadcast. Please hit the subscribe button. We really appreciate it. And leave us a comment. You like it, you don't like it, tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like. You know, we're always in line with what you guys want. So, you know, and we'll do our best to improve it. So for Andrew Kermish, Chris Ransom of Draft Utopia, I'm your host, Joseph Potter. So have fun and take care.